Okay. All right, we are here with Cheryl Rang, Director of Advanced Solutions at Ingram Micro. Cheryl, thank you for joining us today and helping us get our event started.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and being able to talk a little bit about our data center strategy.
All right, so first, we titled this event the modern data center, and I just wanted to get your take to kick it off. To you, what is the modern data center?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because it's something that comes up a lot with partners. Where is the modern data center going? And I think it's been here, but it's continuing to evolve. It would be hybrid. And I say that because it's not just the journey of migrating data from an on-prem data center to the cloud, but what we're seeing now is it's a bit of everything. It's finding ways to become more efficient around taking data from the cloud back onto prem, maybe a multi-cloud vendor approach. So it's definitely hybrid. It's here to stay. And, I only see that growing and evolving pretty rapidly.
Cheryl, kind of follow on to that. I mean, in the time that you've been in Advanced Solution with that focus on data center, what have you really seen from changes over the last 5 years or so?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I would say it probably started a little bit prior to that even, but the way that an application was written, 10 years ago was in that monolithic approach. Meaning, we used to get an update for Windows once a year. And not only did that create a different experience from a customer or consumer perspective, but it also, left vulnerabilities throughout the course of the year. Upgrades were harder and harder to manage through. And when we saw the shift from that into microservices, where it's become, broken up into piecemeal, we see that, continuing to evolve the way that we consume technology, the way that it's developed, and then more importantly, the way it's managed. So I think that big change from the way an application was written spun into new technologies and new ways of managing them that we see now, like containers and being managed by Kubernetes, and looking at, this multi-cloud approach and being able to move applications seamlessly from one to the next.
All right, so with really the new approach, what are your thoughts on in terms of data center security and what should be changing there? What are partners maybe, what should they be doing in terms of security?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because a lot of times we think of data center as that infrastructure piece and not really thinking about what that leads to. And as we see this shift into these modern data centers, the data has literally gone from, right here inside of one pod of a data center and blasted out now everywhere into a decentralized space. So you have data points not only at the edge, it could be in a cloud, it could be in a multi-cloud, and it's everywhere, which creates a ton of vulnerability from a security perspective. So I think things like data privacy and backup and recovery are going to be really key areas that's typically sat in data centers are now going to be moved out into multiple points. And that's a great way to be able to provide a different value around data center and helping keep that information secure.
One of the things that we always talk about is, okay, we know our partners have part of the solution, but what's the rest of it? What's the most common add-on or piece that partners are missing?
I don't know that it's just one. I think there's a lot. And I would tell you, we look at our business intelligence reports and we run market data on end users all the time. And I would tell you probably 10 times out of 10, there is something that end user is consuming that our partners aren't aware of. And so I think just knowing what questions to ask and trying to get a good landscape of an end client's database will open up areas for add-ons. It could be things like security, data privacy and protection. It could be on a storage side and looking at how they can scale up and scale down in a more efficient manner. But I think using the data to get smarter about what your customers are consuming is going to be a way to really open the door, and you can leverage Ingram and our BI team for that.
All right, so another topic we'll be exploring today is innovation. So we'll be talking to some different technology consultants and some different vendors regarding that. So just to you, what are some key innovations that you've seen from our vendors?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's necessarily like a product, but I would say intelligence. And by that, I mean, most partners and most vendors, as they're coming to market with new functionality, everything is a little bit smarter, or it's using the data to get smarter, because the vendors, much like we do today, they realize that the data that they can gather from their products by way of either the partners or end users has a tangible value now. They can use that with analytics, with, artificial intelligence to be able to make solutions that much faster, smarter, and better in the market today. So a great example that I would use with intelligence that isn't something that you would think, but it is innovative, would be around storage. So storage has been around for ages, but next gen storage is starting to integrate things like cloud computing technology to not only save on the retrieving the data faster, but it's making it more efficient, and it's leveraging intelligence in a different way. And we've seen some of the major players, people like HPE, Dell EMC, IBM, Lenovo, they're all coming out with these next gen storage solutions, but also some of the newer companies like a Nutanix or Tintree or Micron, they all have advanced solutions and offerings in that space today too.
Well, we always like to take that look forward. And so whether it's, something that, we've got on our line card right now, or something you see in industry trend, where do you think, what do you think is like the next big disruptor? What's going to be the next thing driving change?
I think a big disruptor is going to be 5G. And it's not just 5G in terms of the network throughput, but it's what that's going to open the door for in data center, and being able to gather information quicker, analyze information quicker, really create those modern architectures within any kind of end user set, and being able to leverage the availability of 5G in any type of infrastructure. That makes sense. It's not going to be for everyone, but we do think it's going to be a massive disruptor in terms of how architectures are built around data centers.
All right. So besides the BTC, right, which is a resource for our partners, and we have our own data center here that we share with our partners, to you, what are some of the key resources, or just even something within the structure of Ingram that really helps our partners sell better in the data center space?
Sure. So I think, part of it is we want to make sure that we still have some expertise in each of these. If you just say data center, it's massive, right? It could be anything from cloud, and we have this robust cloud organization. Then it could be the big brands like an IBM or an HP or Dell, and we've got divisions around each of those. I think the big piece is it all falls under this advanced solution, this idea of how do we take different technologies and being able to deliver them in a solutions approach to our partners. So you have sales teams, you have a sales rep. My recommendation would be to just engage with them, and they will know who to go to. Let them be your quarterback and figure out who to bring in when, because it can be overwhelming, but you have all of this expertise behind you. And from a technology perspective, when I look at where these data center trends are going, we have a group of consultants that we call our data center Delta Force team. And what they're doing they're building out easy to use and easy to consume content to follow where these trends are going, how you can build a practice around it, how you can leverage different partners to, if you don't want to be the next gen data center guy, you can still bring in the right resources and leverage our team to connect the dots. We've also been looking at more and more services that are going to get wrapped around these data center solutions. So we made a small acquisition earlier this year of a company called CloudLogic. And what they're doing is really that pre-sales consulting on a hybrid cloud architecture. So again, it's nothing that you have to be an expert of today, but know that you have resources out there that you can tap into at any moment to be able to determine what's the best architecture and landscape look like for your customers, and how can we help you sell more.
All right. Well, Cheryl, thank you for your thoughts. I think it's a great way to get started to see, and see where Ingram's at and what resources that we have. We appreciate you joining us on our event.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to hopefully meeting all of our partners in person one day.
Someday. All right. Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Bye. All right, that was terrific. It's really great to hear from a leader within the Ingram Micro data center organization. So thanks again, Cheryl, for helping us kick off our event. Out of all the things she said, I really like the point about edge, right, and the emergence of edge, right, and really some of the things that's leading to, right, the other opportunities that's leading to. Specifically, security was the place that she mentioned it too. So because of this one trend, this other thing emerges, right? So new threats. So I am Mike Mason. I work here in the Business Transformation Center. If you're not familiar with the BTC, it is located here in Buffalo, New York. And we just have lots of stuff. We have a data center. We have a classroom. We have a healthcare space. We try to be the show and tell of Ingram Micro, right? So we have a lot of stuff, and we just like to share it either through demos or tours to our partners. So we're a free resource to show technology. Okay, so today for our event, we're doing an interview style event where we're talking to thought leaders from vendors and from Ingram personnel to get their thoughts on the modern data center. Our topics that we asked our interviewees to focus on were innovation in the data center, as well as the app-driven data center. That'll be sort of the first half of the event, and then the second half, we're going to be talking about the touchless data center, and we're going to wrap it all up with security, right? Protecting your data will be the topic near the end, if you can hang around. Andy, if you can, give a little more detail on these topics, and then we'll get into it.
Sure, Mike. So Andrew Schmidt, I'm one of the other engineers here in the Business Transformation Center. And yeah, I just want to add a little bit color on those topics. So you touched on a couple of things. Cheryl did as well. When we talk about innovation, for example, we can look at that as the new technology, and we can do what we've been doing better, faster, whatever. But I like to think about it more as opportunity as well. So, can we do some things different? And my goal is with a lot of this is give opportunities to partners to differentiate themselves, which leads us into the app-driven data center. Cheryl talked about containers, Kubernetes. We know stuff is going to be there. All of our customers are going to get there at different speeds, and that's part of it. So we need to have that side of it. But there's also the infrastructure that goes along with that. The infrastructure we use in those environments is a little bit different. Yeah, we can do that on top of what a lot of we're doing now in terms of virtualization and those kind of things. But I can get some real benefits if I build for those kind of things. Well, guess what? Same thing with a lot of traditional applications. There's some really cool technology innovations that for certain applications, if I build specific for those, I get some incredible performance boosts. So again, think about ways that you can bring these technologies, how you're putting things together as a way to differentiate. Moving on to touchless data center, we're going to be around the data center here today, and you'll see a lot of the stuff that we have. And, I'm in here by myself, and guess what? That's happening a lot. So whether we're talking about true lights out data center or where we have no staff on hand, or just the fact that we've got limited staff, we've learned how to deal with that. And guess what? Back to Mike's point around edge, that's really critical. Because when we talk about edge, we're talking in some cases, inaccessible locations. The comment is always, what does it cost to put a truck on the road? Well, what if you can't put a truck on the road because we're talking about something that's sitting out on an oil rig? Okay, or somewhere where you can't drive to. All right, we've got to think about that with edge, and so that touches the fact that I can do it without touching it is really important. And then finally, I've got to look at security as part of my design specs. All right, and we think of security, cybersecurity as a standalone piece. We're starting to get the cybersecurity people admitting that backup is part of that strategy, that we have to have a backup strategy as part of my overall security posture. Well, guess what? When we go in from an infrastructure standpoint, and I literally mean infrastructure, we have to think about cybersecurity as well, because I have to be confident that what I'm bringing in, if I don't have that entire picture, okay, that I'm not going to create vulnerabilities in an environment that could cause other problems. All right, so we really have to take that holistic view, not just from a solutions approach to make sure we're getting everything that's going on, but to make sure I'm not creating new problems by only looking at one piece of that. So we got a lot of stuff we were going to cover today. I am going to be tooling around the data center here while I'm moving to set up for my first interview, which is going to be with Scott Mann from Scale Computing. We are going to run a short video, and I will be back with you right after that.
All right, so I'm just outside the data center where we'll be doing the recording for much of the event today. So one of the challenges that we're about to run into is sound, right? The data center is a very loud, noisy environment. To bring that to you remotely as our stage. So what we're leveraging today are the Jabra and Blue Parrot headsets for Andy and the other interviewees that will be inside the data center. So each interviewee can pick any of the different types of headsets. So we have the double-eared Blue Parrot, the single-eared. We have a Jabra Evolve 2 that as an option, and also the in-ear one if you like something really light. Okay, so we're going to test all of those out there today, but I'm going to start with a baseline. Now, just before I start, just in case anybody's worried, we do have this is a V7 UV sterilizes. All the headsets fit in there and have been in there, and as they go between people, we just sterilize each headsets with UV rays. All right, so we're going to go ahead into the data center and do a baseline. So it's going to get really loud, so prepare yourselves. And then I'm going to try to kill some of that noise with the Blue Parrot 450 XT is the one I chose. So I'll go really to the loudest point in the data center. You probably noticed the sound kicked up a little bit here. And I just got to go in and sort of play around with the properties here. Now I'm going to put on, I got to turn this on. And now I'm going to switch over the headset to the 450 XT. And there we go. So now I'm on the Blue Parrot headset. Hopefully it sounds a lot better than it did without the headset. Yeah, we give tours on a regular basis, not necessarily between the racks, but just in noisy areas throughout the BTC where there's air conditioning and things like that. It does a great job of clearing up all that noise so we can have a good experience. You can also hear very well, so it's sort of a natural feeling. I typically, when I work on a regular basis, I use a similar model. This is the 350 XT. It's just a little lighter on the ear. So you can wear it even longer, I think, than at least I could wear this one. So I'm going to be back testing a few others, but for now, enjoy the show.
And we're here with Scott Mann, Director of North America Channel for Scale Computing. Welcome, Scott.
Thanks so much for having me. Really excited to be here today.
So as you know, this is a data center event, and so that's our theme. And kind of where I'd like to start with you is modern data center. So whether you want to think about it, what is a modern data center, or what's changed in the data center over the last 5-10 years, what are really kind of what would you call the modern data center these days?
I think the data center, what we think of as the traditional data center, is no longer the modern data center. We've kind of seen there's like these 20-year cycles that we've seen since like the inception of like mainframe computing, right? Where everything started out, centralized, and we went decentralized, and we've gotten comfortable in this world of a centralized data center, and we're talking about we've built really great best practices over the last 2 decades around hardening down the security and the 4 walls of this data center, right? So everywhere where the data lived in those 4 walls. And now what's interesting is technology is driving a new boom of data that's being generated outside of the 4 walls of those data center. So we're still talking data center, but it's non-traditional data center. Now we're seeing, because of things like IoT, because of things like 5G, AI, machine learning, all of those things, we're seeing data being generated where there's no data center that exists. right? And these are all very important uses for the data, for intellectual property, or for things like machine learning or understanding your customers better. But what this is doing, what this is creating, is this opportunity for us to expand our conversation outside of the traditional public and private cloud and VDI discussion, backup, DR, and taking it to those remote locations, which has always existed. Robo was always there, but now with things like edge computing, it's really taking the data to a new conversation, new people that are the IT department is expanding to, that brings more opportunities for us as vendors and us as partners to open the door and ultimately to drive back to that data center conversation, right? So it's really what we're seeing is the modern data center, it's expanding the data center conversation, and that one data center conversation that you have is now 3x, 4x, 5x the size of it, because of the conversation that you can have that's a little bit more expanded.
Now, you brought a great point around edge and how that is still data center, because a lot of the use cases you talked about, it's not just, well, I can put anything there to run whatever I need and I'm good. A lot of times I need a lot of those enterprise class services, a lot of those technologies, a lot of those, availability, those kinds of things are critical. And so I need those same kind of technologies in those remote locations and those other locations. Um, what does scale have to offer there? Where does scale play in this new modern data center?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, I like to think of scale as not just a solution, as a platform. So we started as, a hyper-converged solution for your core data center needs, right? We expanded that as the opportunities came and as we saw the demand grow into things like Robo, where it's just running a server somewhere else, disaster recovery, where it's using that server somewhere else to get your production up and running, things like backup and the hybrid cloud conversation. And then it was, through the pandemic, VDI became very popular, and running that's another infrastructure conversation that you need to having. And it's, third-party technology that we've incorporated into an overall solution. So we talked about that core data center use cases, and then we've really evolved with our edge computing message. And the part of the reason that we've been able to is because of how efficient our architecture is. So while we can run a solution like a video surveillance solution that has a petabyte of storage, our solution is so efficient from an architectural standpoint that we can also run on something that is not much bigger than your cell phone, like an Intel NUC. So we have smaller platforms that expand from, or smaller families of solutions that expand the conversation to a retail store, a grocery store, a gas station, the machine, anywhere the machinery is running, like the factory floor, so that we can kind of basically take that central managed concept of being able to manage your core data center, but expand that to all of those edge locations. And a lot of the times, that is the part that a lot of your customers, they're not asking you for edge computing right now. They're asking you, they're having problems with these new technologies that they're implementing, and they don't know that they need edge computing yet. So our platform is basically that it's a stepping stone into building an entire solution for your customers that could start out at the gas station or on the manufacturing floor, and will lead you back to the data center conversation, which is, an interesting approach to just sales in general in this modern data center world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a great approach too, because I've been in the server storage space for a long time, and one of the things that has always gotten me is there is definitely a big step up to where you start getting basic redundancies in systems. And so now with scale, we have an opportunity to get higher availability architectures at significantly lower costs, where I might not need the compute level that I would have on a highly redundant server, which is still a single server. So it gives us a lot of opportunities and new ways to think about it. I guess kind of continuing along that path, where do you see things going? I see, you've talked a lot about edge. You've talked about how, moving workloads to where either where the data is created or where the data is needed. what does scale see on the horizon?
I think so. What's really interesting in the world right now is I think there's a massive opportunity because there's this convergence of IT and OT, right? We're talking about areas where typically from a typical IT reseller, if you're not selling into video surveillance, any physical security, things like that, you're not having those conversations with people. And what we're seeing with all of this technology is doing is you're kind of having these two worlds colliding. And it creates opportunity, right? So there's these folks that handle all of the more of the security integrators and handling all those physical security. They're currently doing all of the implementation of those video. It's an opportunity for them to expand their conversation into the data center, and vice versa with someone in the IT world to expand their conversation outwards. So really what we're seeing is like this convergence in the IT world that's being driven by technology, and it's creating an awesome opportunity for all of us because we can be those thought leaders for them. Your customers are already thinking about digital transformation. Your customers just don't know the problems that they're going to run into down the road, and we're at the very, very front of this technology trend, right? If you talk about traditional legacy virtualization, public and private cloud, right? That's past its prime, right? It's on the downslope. We're past it. Everything's more commoditized in that market. And now we're talking about this emergence of a new market where we have only scratched the surface of it, right? We've only seen minimal use cases of how IoT can benefit us, how IoT can benefit the customer experience when you walk into a grocery store, how 5G can enable way more technology use cases, and those different aspects that we're going to see in a very exciting next decade, and it's probably going to peak in 10 years from now, and we're going to be talking about the next trend going into the following 10 years. And so it's exciting to get in front of that now because that's where the money's made, right? That's where the margin is. That's where you can create excitement and be that thought leader, that consultant for your customers.
All right. Well, I would like to thank you for your time. I think you brought us some great insights, and hope to hear more from you.
My pleasure. Thanks again. You're all in. I'm excited. Go Bills.
We are here with Mark Miller. Mark is a technology consultant for our IBM team here at Ingram Micro. Welcome, Mark.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike.
All right. So in today's data centers, what are you seeing yourself as far as issues? And since you cover IBM storage, what can IBM storage do to help solve some of those issues?
IBM storage with Spectrum Virtualize, it's really that premier core platform because it allows for data movement between on-prem and cloud. It has rich container, Kubernetes support, Red Hat OpenShift for that on-prem to cloud deployment of applications since that really large push to application modernization. But ultimately, IBM storage gives you that consistent feel, whether you're managing and deploying storage and applications on-prem, in the cloud, or a mix of both.
All right. So another topic here is innovation. We're defining innovation as something that disrupts commodity computing. So from an IBM storage standpoint, what do we have available that helps partners sell into the data center space?
When you take a look at the storage market in general, it's really commoditized. Multitude of vendors can deliver on performance, but few really link those features and benefits to real world solutions. IBM they kind of have this stigma, I'm not going to lie, when they promote that 9 out of the 10 top banks in the world rely on IBM storage, right? And while that's true, sometimes it makes some of our resellers say, oh, it might not be for my customer. They fail to realize is in reality, IBM has solutions that start at the entry level, go all the way up to enterprise at really affordable price points. And they include really, really great features and benefits that solve problems. Obviously, deep integration with VMware, that support for containers and cloud, hybrid multi-cloud. But it also brings consistency to over 450 different storage units. it brings that feature-rich capabilities that IBM offers to heterogeneous storage environments. And then we can't, of course, forget that end-to-end NVMe, storage class memory. All of these systems that are built with Spectrum Virtualize, they really solve real-world problems.
All right, that's good. Now, another thing on top of our mind here is data protection, right? We certainly ransomware attacks are always top of mind. So, what safeguards are available in the IBM storage realm to help thwart those types of attacks?
Current infrastructure focuses a lot on business continuity, disaster recovery, but IBM's adding an additional layer of focus on cyber resiliency with the addition of safeguarded copy that they're adding to the IBM Spectrum Virtualized family and the Flash Systems portfolio. And what safeguarded copy does is it creates immutable point-in-time snapshots that can't be changed or deleted by malicious attacks or ransomware. It also helps protect against internal users unintentionally corrupting production data. And if your data is ever compromised, safeguarded copy allows you to automate the backup back to production from those safeguarded copies. Cyber resiliency, disaster recovery, business continuity, they all share that common goal of protecting your data. But when you add that focus on cyber resiliency, you really gain that confidence that the copy of your revenue producing production data wasn't altered before after it was ingested. And in the case of any type of cyber attack, you're protected by being able to restore directly from those safeguarded copies.
All right. Now, Mark, I know one of your jobs here is to show our partners the IBM storage solutions. So what is your favorite feature to show off when you have a partner in front of you?
One of my favorite features that I like to show business partners is IBM Spectrum Virtualized with that storage virtualization aspect. And to dive a little bit deeper into that, it's the ability for the IBM storage system to support over 450 different heterogeneous storage subsystems from a multitude of vendors like HPE, Dell EMC, really you name it. What it allows it to do is the IBM unit sits in front of your existing storage subsystem, and it essentially treats it as its own. So all of the benefits and the features that we were talking about earlier, all of that is adopted by the existing storage automatically, right? And that's a huge benefit because you don't have to throw out that existing storage. So many times you see, oh, we need to upgrade our storage. Everything just gets moved to a new system. You buy new capacity and that old system gets depreciated and it's out the door. But you're able to maintain and hold on to that existing investment through the IBM storage virtualization. And those features include things like Easy Tier, which is that AI, no policy based, right? It's policy-less. And it allows you to move your data from the existing storage subsystem all the way up to the IBM storage where you're using that full end-to-end NVMe and back down automatically, all driven by AI. So that's one of the best features because in the data center here behind me, right, we have our IBM equipment and we also have a multitude of other storage vendors that we're able to leverage. So that's one of my favorite features that's really compelling to some of my business partners.
Mark, you sounded great. It's a lovely headset you have on. And thanks for joining us today.
Thanks very much, Mike. I appreciate it.
All right.
We are here with Gordon Lord, Senior Director, IT Distribution and Channel Strategy for Schneider Electric. Welcome, Gordon.
Andy, thanks for having me.
So, Schneider Electric, APC is maybe probably one of the more familiar brands for a lot of our partners. Has been in the data center space for almost as long as I have. Obviously, one of the things that we talk about, if we're talking about modern data center, that suggests change. So over the last, obviously the past year and a half has been some very accelerated change. But even before that, really, what's some of the biggest changes that you've seen in the data center space?
Sure. Yeah. No, Andy, it's been a lot of change. If you go back the past, 10 or 15 years, I remember going on customer sites and, you'd go in to assess their data center from a physical infrastructure standpoint, their power, their what they had for enclosures, what they had for cooling. And honestly, it was pretty straightforward. You look at what they had for rack densities, you look at number of racks, you look at their growth strategy, and then you look at what size UPS you could recommend to them. You're putting in 40, 60, 80 kilowatt UPSs that were on-premise data center with mid-market customers all the way up to enterprise. And now you've seen the decline of the on-premise data center and the growth of these massive data centers with some of the large service providers out there. But then you've also seen just the explosion of what we used to refer to as distributed IT, now called the edge, because you're seeing more and more compute closer to the point of consumption. So when you say data center, you have to qualify that now, to see what the customer truly means by data center.
So it sounds like that edge is a real growth area for Schneider and APC. What kind of things are you seeing going out there now?
Yeah, no, truly. What we're seeing now, both are a huge opportunity. You're seeing the big projects with the service providers, right, as they build out massive data centers. But we are more and more customers that are looking at that compute, and even if it's not storage at the edge, you're looking at that connectivity to all those applications that might be hosted by AWS or Microsoft Azure or at one of those service providers. So how do you ensure that connectivity? So we're very focused on that. We refer to it as certainty in a connected world. How do we make sure that customers can connect to the applications that they might have, on premise or hosted somewhere else? So lots and lots of time spent there.
So going through the pandemic, obviously, data centers had to keep running, and hopefully, if they were listening to us beforehand, they were ready to really run lights out or with limited staff. With this growth in the edge, are we seeing those kind of requirements going out to those, non-traditional data centers?
Yeah, absolutely. I could think of two things that really come to mind in terms of their requirements, locally when it comes to lights out, as you say. And one, we were talking about this earlier, was just the whole idea of streaming media, right? You see throughout the pandemic, a lot of us to get through, we weren't traveling places, so we had a huge dependency on streaming media, and that connectivity back to those applications that were hosted somewhere else was important to all of our sanity, right? Especially if you have kids, right? Like, what am I going to watch? I can't connect to the TV. I can't watch my movie. So that's a real, I would say, basic one, but an important one. I would say the other one that comes to mind would be, education. Distance learning was really new. I mean, that really didn't exist all that much before the pandemic. So, to be lights out and be able to educate our children, in that environment was absolutely critical. So having solutions and having the right approach to providing that certainty in a connected digital distance environment was absolutely critical.
So we're always looking for innovations and opportunities for our partners. So is there something, if there was one thing you wanted the partners to know about to be able to take advantage of some of these opportunities, especially around things like edge, or distributed IT, whatever you want to call it, what would that be?
And one of the things that we're focused on is the digitization of the infrastructure for our customers. We know that a lot of data center and edge environments are unmanned now. So we've actually come out with some offers, one called monitoring and dispatch, and we're actually trying to figure out how to bring it to our customers in a way that was transactional enough for our partners to be able to talk about it. So we actually partnered with Ingram to bring this to market, where the whole idea of UPS as a service. we go in and we talk to school districts about, or in mid-market customers, not just school districts, but we talk to them about, UPSs. And while we think it's important, they've got so many other things to focus on now, right? So, especially one-to-one when it comes to, Chromebooks and tablets and things like that. So what we wanted to do was engage customers in a way where we provided business value. So remotely monitor and manage the UPS for the customer, but do it in a way where we could maximize their financial flexibility. So whether they wanted to do that in a CapEx model or an OpEx model, we could do that. We could deliver that, through and with Ingram. So, to me, it's really engaging customers, at a business level, business value proposition, but also, technology, be able to speak both. And, that's what we want to try to do with our partners, with our great distributor partner in Ingram Micro.
Oh, thank you very much, Gordon. It's great insights on the industry, and it was great talking to you.
Andy, thank you so much. Great time speaking with you.
Thanks.
Hello, John. Welcome. Everyone, I have with me John Bussard, a senior business transformation engineer here in the Business Transformation Center, focusing on HPE solutions. Welcome, John.
Hello, how you doing today?
Good. So, John, welcome to the event. And my question's real simple is, what is the modern data center to you?
So the modern data center to me takes a lot of the concepts that we found within the cloud and kind of applies them locally inside our data center. So certainly HPE has solutions such as GreenLake, and if you don't know what GreenLake is, it's the ability to get on-premises hardware like what we're looking at here and actually pay for that based on what you use and over time instead of that big CapEx. But I think the data centers that we're working with today are going to be incorporating other things that we've learned out of the cloud as far as quickly being able to provision solutions out as well as decommission solutions. So we should be able to expand and contract based on what's driving business. And I think a good example of that is some of the hyper-converged solutions that have been coming out.
Terrific. So, so one of the things I know you want to talk about, right? There's HCI or hyper-converged infrastructure.
Yep.
And really, our topic here is about innovation, right? So first of all, can you just tell us what DHCI is?
Yep.
Find that for us, and then tell us why that's an innovation in the data center space.
Absolutely. So DHCI, it is a hyperconverged platform, but it's got this little D on the beginning of it, which stands for disaggregated hyperconverged. So today, the weakest link within anybody's hyperconverged environment is the software-defined storage layer. And if you don't know what that is, basically, we're taking local storage across multiple systems, grouping it together in a redundant fashion, presenting it back to the environment as shared storage. Right. With DHCI, and then again, that can be the weakest link of the thing. With DHCI, we don't have software-defined storage. We have an external array that's associated with this. It can be an Electra, it can be a Nimble array, but we still have all the value adds around hyperconvergence around there. So, once you get this thing racked and stacked, it deploys in less than an hour. You can expand it in less than an hour. You've got one-click upgrades of your virtualization stack, your firmware within your systems, as well as the software within the systems. You got one pane of glass to be able to manage. It's supported as a single entity. So all the benefits you get around hyperconverged, you will get with a DHCI solution.
Terrific. So are there any common misperceptions when someone hears about the solution that you run into?
Absolutely. So when I go out and I talk to people about hyperconverged solutions, I'll get people that'll come back and say, hey, that's not really a hyperconverged solution. And I'll get that from a lot of the hyperconverged competitors that are out there. But that kind of annoys me because I think when people come back and that's their attack back at you, that they don't really understand what the customer's business needs are. Really, they're trying to simplify their infrastructure, get the value of hyperconverged. Just because it looks like it's a little bit different, it's not exactly the same, right? It's still a great solution to be able to sell it in those type of environments. As a matter of fact, it's better, right? I can maintain better performance, as we kind of talked about the software-defined storage piece of this, than a traditional hyperconverged environment.
Okay, so perhaps we addressed some of this, but to me, when we talk about hyperconverged, the things that the vendor would need to address are performance, scale, and complexity. Can you just give us a few words about how the HPE solution deals with those three things?
Well, actually, this is the HPE DHCI solution is better from scalability than traditional hyperconverged environments. So in a hyperconverged environment, you need more storage, you're buying the appliance. You need more compute, you're buying the appliance. In a DHCI solution, you can scale storage separately from compute, because that's one of the problems with hyperconverged environments. Sometimes that doesn't scale linearly within your environment. Sometimes it's not the one thing. Another thing from scale that you can do with the DHCI environment is the capability to bring in equipment you already have. So again, we're dealing with HP ProLiant servers and a nimble array. But if you have existing systems that are out there, whether they're ProLiant Gen 9 systems, Gen 10, Gen 10 Plus, you've already purchased these, you have the ability to reallocate that resource to be a part of your DHCI environment as a first-class citizen. It'll actually become it. Now, it takes a little bit longer to get that kind of set up and deploy the environment, but having that ability to be able to do that makes a lot of sense. Here's another piece that I'll give you on that as well. With normal hyperconverged environments, the software-defined storage, the storage layer of this is dedicated to the hyperconverged environment. It can't be exposed externally to that. With the DHCI environment, because we're using a normal array, if I have a Windows box that needs a volume on it, I could carve it out of the DHCI environment, present it, fully supported like that. So, going back, it kind of gives you all the value of hyperconverged, but without any of the limitations that are kind of involved. So that's kind of how I look at scale inside these environments with DHCI. It makes it a lot easier for people to be able to use their resources as they wish.
All right, John, good to see your equipment behind you there, and thanks for joining us today. Maybe I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, bye.
All right. All right, so I want to break things up a little by showing you some of my favorite tools that I use in the data center. Now, it could start and stop with this one. My all-time favorite are just the Ergotron carts. So I know these are supposed to be used in the classroom, but a great multifunction device for the data center. I use them to move boxes around, to move equipment around, as a crash cart, and more recently, and for this event, as something to hold my cameras and recording equipment as I move inside, outside, wherever I need to go. So the Ergotron also has a nice bin to keep cables and like a console or patch cables and a little tool. So one of my favorite tools is this adapter I've had for a couple of years now, actually, from IO Gear. It's a crash cart adapter. So my crash cart could just be a laptop, just goes USB and then to KVM. So really nice solution, so I don't have to drag out a monitor, figure out how to power it, and then find a keyboard and mouse that I like. I just use my laptop. So crash cart adapter is great. Nothing to pre-install. You just run a little installer. The next one, which I literally used just before recording this, is this breakaway adapter from Panduit. So what it allows me to do is use these mobile carts that I love so much, right? But also wire in, because sometimes our Wi-Fi is very contentious here. I want a good signal. Sometimes I do need to wire stuff in. So breakaway adapter, you just plug the wired cable into this somewhere along the chain, typically this into the wall, and then as I roll the cart away, I inevitably forget that I'm wired, right? It just breaks away with a little bit of pressure, so all your stuff doesn't end up on the floor. Okay, and the next thing and I'm going to show you this in a second, but I'll just talk about it first, is the rack mount IT solutions, which allow you to mount devices like this into your racks. Now, number one, that helps you right size the solution. So, this ISR, it might be the right solution for your customer, but you don't have to upscale just so they can mount it in a rack securely and it's not sitting on a shelf. So we have a bunch of these guys, but they're all sitting on the shelves here. Okay, I need to clean that up. I'm going to use this for my Meraki gear and my smaller ISRs, and we have a bunch of smaller firepowers that we use for labs, and we're going to use the rack mount IT solution to put them in the rack and then run the cables in the front. Very popular with just any of these kind of form factors from all sorts of manufacturers. Fortinet would be a popular one as well. All right, so we'll take a look at that in a few minutes, and I hope you're enjoying the show.
While we're talking about edge solutions, I want to tell you a little bit about some offerings from Eaton. So this is a Eaton mini rack. This is designed as an edge solution. So wall mount rack, secure enclosure, happens to be extremely modular. So actually this front panel will come off. We can change out the sides if we need more depth. Right now I've got a 5P lithium ion UPS mounted. I've got the Gigabit Ethernet card installed for management, and that allows me to support environmental probe, which I've got hooked up as well. I'm going to switch over now and show you what the interface of that card looks like and explain why this is such a great solution at the edge. So let me roll my rack in here. So this is the Gigabit Ethernet card installed in an Eaton 5P 1500 UPS. This is a lithium ion UPS, as I said, which gives us some great advantages from things like recycle time for power. Charge time is a little bit faster. So really great for situations where I may not have very stable power, because I know that if I have some downtime and I'm running off the battery, I am going to be able to, once power is back, get that unit recharged in short order. This is just the overall interface, showing that I've got power flow, showing that I've got battery. I can scroll through the options and go and look at my voltages and frequencies. So if I have issues around power quality, I can monitor that as well. This is a relatively small UPS. So I've only got 2 load segments, but that does give me the flexibility, though, if I've got something like a router that I might need to restart, but I don't want to restart all the internal systems, I can just make sure that's on a separate load segment. And then I can do things like a safe reboot, which is going to be a timed, shut off, stay off for a certain amount of time and restart. I mentioned I've got the environmental probe installed, so I can see that my operating temperature is around 75, humidity around 36. So that may be well within range for what I've got in this rack, but that would give me another way to tell if I've got something going on. This is all remote manageable. I can use SMTP alerts if I've got that configured. So if I have a problem, whether it's just an interruption, whether it's a battery quality issue, whether it's an environmental issue, I can set those probes. With the environmental probe, I can actually daisy chain 2 additional ones. So if I had other critical locations at that location, I could monitor those as well. And these also have dry contacts. So if I want to have other things provide alerts back, we can leverage that sensor as well.
All right, so I decided not to put them in the racks because I thought it's easier to show without them in the racks, but I think you'll get the idea. Okay, so I've set up, I was showing you the ISR 1100, and here it is in the rack, purpose built for it from Rack Mount IT. As you see, it came with everything I needed, including the ability to tie the power supply down. Has a little hole to run through this little cable piece for power. It gives me all the ports on this side, and it's not blocking any of the airflow or anything like that. So it's ready to go in a rack, stable, secure. The other one that I'm going to mount here is the Mac Mini. We use that for labs when we need a Mac for some reason. And now we can just mount it in the rack instead of, again, stuff like this where we have stuff sitting on the shelves. That's going to be a thing of the past. So thanks to Rack Mount IT, and have a great day. All right, so I am here with Ghoul Piriani, the channel director for Morpheus Data. And Ghoul, we're here talking about the modern data center, and specifically maybe some of the app-driven data center is one of the words we use for it. So I'll just start with that one. So to you, what is the modern data center, or what does that mean to you?
I think when we talk about how businesses define modern data center in 2021, especially after having lived through 2020, it's agile, flexible, It's not time consuming, and I'd actually go so far as to use the words it's cloud-like, right? It's simple for the business, the end users, to be able to bring new services to life, to be able to get new things, new experiments, really to innovate.
All right, so that might answer this next question, but what do you see different about selling into the data center today than you did 15 years ago, or is that your answer?
Yeah, no, actually, I think there's an even bigger answer there, right? Which is customers have a number of solutions at their fingertips today they didn't have 15 years ago. I mean, 15 years ago, AWS, as an example, was just a twinkle in someone's eye that was just coming to life. And boy, if we had known then, right? But at the end of the day, there's so many technologies businesses could adopt. I think that's one of the struggles is really there's so many choices, and choices aren't necessarily good, right? It's easy to move forward when you only have one choice. It's hard when you've got 1,000. And picking the right choice for your business, many times is experimentation. It's trying something and failing at it. And a lot of businesses don't fail fast. So I'd say what's different today is customers need guidance. They're also picking technologies that kind of fit that fast use case. So you see a lot of technologies that just didn't exist 15 years ago that are really starting to become entrenched in business today.
All right. So here in the BTC, our data center is very heterogeneous. We have all sorts of products from partners, and we're here to show the breadth of Ingram Micro. And I actually became a user of Morpheus, and thank you for helping me out with that, because I needed a self-service solution, right? So I have a small team, and we needed to look a lot bigger. So so one is, if you could take a moment just for those not familiar, to describe what Morpheus is,
Sure.
and then just what kind of problems you're helping solve in the data center.
I love it. Thank you very much. And if I had to give an elevator pitch, I think I would fall back to that word self-service. But let's talk about what that really means, because grumpy old school IT guy me says, if you were to let my developers back in my world have access to our infrastructure, the end result wouldn't be good. It would, I would be a digital janitor, just cleaning up after people. So we want to enable the business to be able to push a button and have an IT service spring to life, just like they were shopping online, right? We want to make it that simple. But to do that, we really need to actually focus on a few pillars of sort of functionality, and amongst them are things like being able to say, hey, we want to make the technology choices you're bringing into your environment today cloud-like. So even in the data center, we want to create those true private clouds. So if you're looking at doing hybrid cloud today, we want to make that private piece of it just as seamless as everything else you're adopting. We also want to put guardrails around it, right? So your users stay inside those swim lanes. They do their jobs, nothing more, nothing less. And then, of course, automate everything. That's how this gets fast. And actually, the benefit of automation that would have been great in my IT career is reliability, repeatability, right? One of the funny things about humans is have the same person or different people do the same task. It's going to come out different every time. And that's just because the nature of who we are. So adding automation there actually makes sure that when you ask for 10 apples, you get 10 apples and not 9 apples and an orange. And that's critical to businesses when you think about outages and service delivery, right? And then the last piece, right, is give you visibility into what's out there. So being able to just see, hey, this person has these applications and costs us this much. We want to give you the ability just to get your arms around it, give you some data. And that's what really we do.
I'm sure you're a user of your product as well. So if you had to tell a customer, just one feature, or what's your favorite feature to show off to a customer?
I love that question. And, I say this in all of my demos nowadays. My favorite feature, again, is governance. Just looking back to what I've done in my career, governance gives us the ability to prevent people from making simple mistakes. How often have you heard of someone spinning something up, attaching it to a network that faces the whole world? Next thing you know, it's not a breach because that was facing the entire internet. It's a mistake. It's a mistake. An engineer that was probably in a hurry, maybe not paying attention, maybe didn't know the environment, maybe they're new to the company, but they check a box that they just shouldn't have checked. What if we could just make those boxes, hey, you're provisioning into the test environment, by the way, that's fine, but test environments can't see the internet. We can't allow that data to get outside the company. Why don't we help them, right? So I love our guardrails. Put guardrails around people. And by the way, another piece of this is being able to do things. There's so many organizations I talk to that are like, we want request approvals on everything. Well, do you? That's the point of guardrails. You already know what you're going to say yes to. So why don't we create guardrails that are yes? Let them come to you for approval when it's a no. But when it's a yes, let them run. Let them run fast. That's what cloud-like technologies do. So I love our governance. All
right. So Ghoul, thanks for coming. Now, if I get this straight, right? So Morpheus, if I want self-service, if I want a modern data center, I want governance, multi-tenancy. I basically want my on-prem environment to work seamlessly with my cloud environment and just act like one big cloud. Is that a good summarization of how Morpheus is bringing us to a modern data center?
You got it. Let's bring self-service to the business.
All right. Thanks, Ghoul.
You're awesome. Thank you.
We're here with Pratik Patel, technology consultant at Ingram Micro, focusing on Lenovo data center solutions. Welcome, Pratik.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, through the event today, we've really established that edge computing is a powerful factor in IT today. So quite literally right behind me here in the Business Transformation Center, we've got a Lenovo ThinkSystem SE350, which is an edge-targeted platform. So why is the SE350 such a game changer in terms of edge computing?
For the pure fact that the SE350 is purpose-built for the edge. It's designed to operate in rugged environments, making it ideal for deployment in tight spaces. It's built to withstand extreme operating environments. With its compact form factor, its ability to operate in extreme temperatures, its resistance to shock and vibration, and not to mention dust filter for those not so clean room environments. In an edge use case, it could be deployed in the middle of nowhere, and that's why it provides increased security. From built-in motion and tamper detection, its self-encrypting storage, and its secure authentication, it ensures that only authorized users have access to it. And finally, it's built for easy deployment and manageability. As you know, it's costly and time-consuming to send IT staff to remote sites. The SE350 features remote manageability that enables IT to efficiently maintain server, storage, and networking infrastructure. In that regard, the SE350 also provides numerous connectivity options with wired and secured wireless Wi-Fi and LTE connection capabilities. The way I see it, the SE350 is right-sized compact compute and storage server designed specifically to meet the needs of edge computing use cases.
So one of the interesting things that's come up in conversation talking about edge is that people aren't asking for edge compute solutions. However, lots of people need edge compute solutions. So how do we help partners understand what really is an edge use case? Maybe you've got an example use case.
Wow, that's a great question. There are many use cases which involve edge computing, from predictive maintenance to cloud gaming. But a use case that stood out to me as being different was in healthcare. In this case, a customer that provides medical assistance to people affected by conflict, epidemics, disasters, or where healthcare is unavailable in countries across the globe. Specifically, they needed a compact, rugged server that could withstand various temperatures and had a thick tamper bezel to use in the field. This is where the SE350 form factor and security features were crucial, as well as Lenovo's global presence that they could get needed support in all the countries that they travel to. The result is that when traveling in the field, they are now using a flight case. That's basically a traveling mini data center, which is equipped with a couple Lenovo SE350s. This solution is allowing them to set up a workspace quickly, safely, and securely. To me, this use case sounds like it could be used in many other applications.
That is a very interesting use case. So I'd like to thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll have people looking for more information on Lenovo Edge Solutions.
Yep.
Thanks,
Thank
Pratik.
you.
All right, coming to you from the other side of my data center, I'm showing off the Blue Parrot M300 XT headset, which again, it's doing a great job of noise cancellation in the data center, where it's a very noisy environment. And this one is just extremely light on my ear and very inconspicuous. You know, if I need it to be that way for some reason. All right, so hope you're enjoying the show. Let's keep it going.